What up, Cucks? It's your boy, the Hater, up in this mud. And Hater at home, by the way, you know what I'm saying? This video is going to be about the complete lack of wrestling that's happening, right? And how to fix it. So, one of the biggest problems, in my opinion, the biggest problem of modern day wrestling is that there isn't enough wrestling, right? For Raw and SmackDown, it's a little bit weird because all of a sudden, like, you know, last night on Raw, they explained that Gunther, who is the world champion, isn't even there. Like, well, then what am I watching, right? What am I watching, the mid-carders? This is an episode of Raw. The champion, like, it should be axiomatic that the champion appears on every episode of Raw and that he wrestles a minimum of 30 Raw matches a year. That's like the baseline for tolerating this person as a champion, right? And I know you're thinking, oh, the Hater loves Roman Reigns. I don't like the fact that he didn't wrestle on SmackDown. I thought that was bullshit. Now, within the context of Roman Reigns, it makes sense because he's a heel and he's someone that, like, doesn't care, right? That's kind of his character. His character is, I'm the number one guy. I'll wrestle only when I need to, right? And I'll make the money and I'll kick ass. And the underpinnings were that by making it so that Roman Reigns wrestles so infrequently, when someone gets a title match, it's a big deal, right? Because, wow, Roman Reigns is going to wrestle. This only works if you're Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns, and fundamentally only works if you're a heel. If you're Cody Rhodes, right, who is a face, you need to be wrestling almost every week. If you're Gunther, who is a heel, but he's also new and a jobber, you need to establish that why I have to respect you, right? But Michael Cole just flat out says, Gunther's already in Europe preparing. What? That's like in a week, bro. What about today? Cuck, you know? And with all this being said, we find ourselves completely rammed with less and less wrestling, right? It's people like Chad Gable. It's people like Austin Theory. It's people like Grayson Waller that are basically carrying wrestling on their backs in terms of the actual performance, right? They're actually there and they wrestle all the time. The Miz, R-Truth, right? And you have all these other old-timers like Randy Orton coming out there. And you know how they said, like, it's like a thing in wrestling where, like, DX, when they got together for the last time, you know, they were just having fun, and Cena told them, oh, I really like what you guys are doing. And they said, you know, hopefully one day you can do that too. Now the company's on your shoulders, you know? You can't take it easy. You got to do all the appearances. You got to show up. You got to wrestle every week. You can't do what you want. But maybe one day, when you're at the level of that Cena is now, or the level that Orton is now, you can have fun. But now, the wrestlers that are supposed to be carrying the brand are doing the same thing. And the brand, SmackDown and Raw, and the greater WWE brand, is being carried by Midcard Jobbers, right? The people that you get to see wrestle are people like JD McDonough. Are people like Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio, who I like, but he's not a big star yet, you know? And how can he be a big star if all he does is wrestle Dominic Mysterio versus, like, Rey Mysterio, you know what I mean? How many times are we going to see this goddamn match? You know, like, it comes a point where enough is enough, right? Meanwhile, Rey Mysterio, who should be in the having fun part of his career, and I guess that is what he's doing with the LWO, you know, he's out there also wrestling more frequently than Cody Rhodes. You know, nobody wants to see Sami Zayn. Nobody wants to see Jey Uso. These are people that aren't stars, but we have to pretend are stars in order to get the point moving forward. You know what I mean? We can't continue to do this ad nauseum forever, right? There needs to come a point where we recognize, hold on a second, partner. Where are the stars? Where are they? They don't wrestle at all anymore. This goes back to the previous video that I made, where, like, I channeled one of my subscribers and his or her comment about why is it that these guys only wrestle each other, right? Like, it's normal. Like, once in a while, for example, when Triple H, I'll never forget this because it was a really out-of-the-box situation. Triple H was the WWE champion, right? Back in the day, in the Attitude Era, right? The height of the Attitude Era, right? And one random-ass episode of Sunday Night Heat that I watched, Hardcore Holly goes up to him and says, I don't think you're all that. I think I can beat you. And all of a sudden, they do a WWE, or WWF, I should say, title match. Triple H versus Hardcore Holly on Sunday Night Heat. And Triple H wins, right? It was like, not a squash match, but, you know, it was a Triple H is obviously going to win this match. And then later on, like, Raw and Heat are taped together, right? But they're shown differently, right? Later on, that Raw, Triple H either wrestled or at the very least came out and cut a promo. You know, so once in a while, I understand. You're not always going to wrestle because there's not enough time and, you know, people get hurt and things like that. But you have to wrestle consistently. Triple H was wrestling on Sunday Night Heat. Cody Rhodes wrestles only on pay-per-views, and thus far he's wrestled in 2 SmackDown matches. Since WrestleMania, it's been almost 5 months. You know what I mean? Like, it's essentially been 5 months. So it's like, what exactly is there? What? Let's see. From April to May, May to June, July, August, and we're basically at September. So like, but realistically, like WrestleMania was at the beginning of April, and we're almost in September. So it's basically been 5 months, and he probably won't wrestle in the next SmackDown anyway. So it'll be 5 months. He's had 2 matches on SmackDown. It's unacceptable. You know what I mean? It's unacceptable. You need people to wrestle to remind me as to why they're good, right? Perhaps even more importantly than reminding me is attracting new viewers. Let's say, for example, you're someone that like doesn't know much about wrestling, and you're like, oh, I heard that Roman Reigns guy lost, and now there's a new champion. You might tune in to see the new champion. Let's say you're a complete casual. You haven't watched in 10 years, right? You don't know who Cody Rhodes is, right? Or you haven't seen him in a long time. And you're like, I'm going to tune in. And then you see him talking in a beige suit, and you're like, wait a second. Well, why isn't the champion wrestling? Why is it that all he does is he talks? And it's like, it's one thing, like if Cody Rhodes was The Rock, that would be okay, fine. He's The Rock, right? Like him talking is better than him wrestling. But he's not The Rock. He's Cody Rhodes. So with all this being said, we need to immediately, and by we I mean the WWE, the we with another W before, they need to immediately rethink their priorities and consider what it is that they want to do with their product. They can't just sit there and let people do whatever they want. You need people to wrestle. Back in the day, it was not uncommon for the show, let's say a random episode of SmackDown to start, and Booker T comes out, he's the champion, and I don't know, like fucking Rey Mysterio is like, I want a rematch, Booker. That's the opening segment, let's say, right? And then like Booker T's like, I'm not wrestling you, I'm the king, whatever, right? And then what happens is maybe someone attacks like Rey Mysterio from behind. Let's say Finlay, right, attacks Rey Mysterio from behind and throws him in the ring, and him and Booker like double team him, right? Then Rey Mysterio, let's say he gets thrown out, and Teddy Long comes out and he says, you know what? If you guys want to get handsy, why don't we have our tag team match, playa, right? And then you see Booker T being like, no, I don't want to wrestle. Finlay's like, bring it on or whatever, right? And he's like, it'll be Finlay and Booker T versus Rey Mysterio and none other than The Undertaker, playa, or something like that, right? Like Teddy Long was booking matches for The Undertaker, who is arguably the first ever real part-timer, right? The first ever like consistent presence that wasn't there consistently. And he was booking matches with The Undertaker. When Undertaker was in his like early 50s or maybe late 40s, right? He was booking matches consistently with him. I was watching this video on the run of fucking Main Event Mafia. It's like Booker T, Kevin Nash even, they were wrestling like every week. Kurt Angle was wrestling all the time. He was in his late 30s, so he could still go big time. He's wrestling every fucking week. And now they want us to just be okay with every star. And it's not even just their champions now. Like, when was the last time Drew McIntyre wrestled? When was the last time, like, Roman Reigns, forget about him. Well, fucking hell, when was the last time Solo Sikoa fucking wrestled on SmackDown, right? Not even Solo Sikoa is wrestling all the time. Well, who the fuck is gonna wrestle? By no means has anyone accepted Solo Sikoa as being even a scintilla of a main eventer. Let alone a main eventer who has the prestige and the caliber to not wrestle every week. Solo Sikoa, before when Roman Reigns was around and Solo Sikoa was lackey Sikoa, he was the one wrestling every week. And now he has his own lackeys, and even they barely wrestle. I mean, it's just unacceptable. It's like, for a fact, like when you tune into SmackDown, I can tell you what's going to happen, motherfucks. What's going to happen is Grayson Waller and Austin Theory are going to probably wrestle, right? You're going to see a bullshit tag team like DIY probably wrestle. You're not going to see the Bloodline wrestle, most likely. You're not going to see Solo Sikoa wrestle. You sure as shit are not going to see Cody wrestle. You're probably not going to see Cody Owens wrestle, right? You're not going to see anything that you might want to see. And as a result, it's like, well, there are no stars. Cody Owens and Cody Rhodes are not big enough to say for pay-per-views. They're not fucking Goldberg. They treat them like they're Goldberg. Like, you would turn on the TV and you'd be like, oh, there's Goldberg. Well, of course, Goldberg's not going to wrestle on Raw because he's fucking Goldberg. You know what I mean? Not only is he like 55, but he's Goldberg. You know what I mean? But now it's like, you turn the TV on and you're like, oh, there's the WWE champion, Cody Rhodes in his prime. And he doesn't even wrestle. He just comes out there and says, oh, I'm happy to be champion. Are you? I thought you were going to be a fighting champion, cuck. And that's the problem that I have with this. It's all lies. Everything that we are told is lies. They say things are going to be different. The Paul Levesque era is going to be different. How is it different? How is it different, motherfuckers? It's the same exact thing. The only difference is, instead of Roman Reigns, we have the lesser Cody Rhodes. And to make matters even worse, they already ruined Roman Reigns and his return. Like, that thing fell flat. It's one of the worst returns of all time. It was supposed to be the best return of all time, and they somehow managed to make it the worst return of all time. Now Roman Reigns, presumably, in kayfabe, he's still recovering from the mild beating that Solo Sikoa gave him. Like, Solo Sikoa was on SmackDown proclaiming that, like, Roman Reigns is done for. And I don't think Roman Reigns is coming back this week, this Friday. I don't think he's coming back next Friday. I don't think Solo Sikoa is going to have a match at Bash in Berlin. So it's like, what exactly is it that we're going to watch in Bash in Berlin? Gunther and Randy Orton? Like, CM Punk? It's the same fucking shit. Same shit as the last pay-per-view. So the needle has not moved at all, right? And more importantly than the needle moving, the story hasn't moved. Because that's fine. Sometimes you lose ratings. But the story hasn't moved, cuckolds. That being said, that's all I got to say about that. Cucks.